We are here. UFC 326 fight week. Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway 2. A fight 10 years in the making. A legends fight between one of the most elite boxers and guys to ever put it on the feet in Max Holloway versus one of the most dangerous submission artists and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grapplers in Charles Oliveira. Two absolute legends. It was about time that we got this fight redone because the first fight was 10 years ago and they were just completely different fighters back then. And yeah, this is a legends fight. We got to enjoy these two while we still got them. I truly believe that Holloway and Charles, we only have like 2 years left of these guys fighting, really. It depends whoever wins this fight. I think for the other guy that loses, it's going to be a long, it's going to be, we'll see how they reassess their careers. But yeah, Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway, the BMF title fight. We all know, whatever, BMF, it's kind of a gimmicky belt, not real, but if there was ever a fight to main event a card with a non-real title, it was this fight right here that would do that. That is big enough to headline its own numbered event. So yeah, and also the card is just kind of awful. I think it's safe to say this is one of the worst numbered events. This is the worst numbered event we have gotten so far in the UFC Paramount era. They never even ended up announcing a co-main event. They said they were going to have a co-main event on here, and they just never did. They decided to stick with Reiner de Ritter versus Caio Borralho as the co-main event, and then Raul Rosas Jr. versus Rob Font, Michael Johnson versus Drew Dober. So let's quickly run through the card. I'm not going to get in detail with every single one of these fights, but, you got Rodolfo Bellato, super goofy fighter fighting Luke Fernandez. You got Ju Sang Yu, the Korean Zombie Jr., a prodigy of the Korean Zombie, trying to get a bounce back fight versus Gaston Bolanos. He lost his last fight. Simad Aregi versus Jesus Aligar. Then you have this guy, Jargal Timendebril, however you say that, versus Cody Durden. This dude's literally from Mongolia. Okay, don't give her about that fight. Then you got Dante Johnson versus Dusko Torovic. Dante Johnson, a prospect on the rise from the Contender Series. I think picked up his first UFC win. Interesting prospect to see how he kind of does in this middleweight division, 7-0. Could have a showcasing moment or have a flopping debut moment. We just got to see how good this guy really is, Dante Johnson. And then in the feature prelim, you got Cody No Love Garbrandt versus Zhao Long, who clearly is coming out from the road to UFC from China or wherever he is. Cody Garbrandt, he's kind of still a name. He'll always be known for that being probably the best fighter in the UFC that night when he just had one of the craziest flawless performances ever, defeating Dominic Cruz. Then he had the whole thing with TJ Dillashaw. Yeah, Cody Garbrandt, and then what? In his last two fights, I think got outdogged by Davison Figueiredo at UFC 300, got out-wrestled. My mouse is tweaking a little bit. And then lost to old man Ronnie Barcelo. So lost to two older bantamweights that just wrestled him. And honestly, the UFC's got to do him a solid right now by giving him the striker. Then I don't know, he beat two guys that probably aren't even in the UFC anymore. And after that, lost to Kai Kara France, lost to Rob Font. Pretty up and down for Cody Garbrandt, but again, he did have that vintage, once in a generation type of performance versus Dominic Cruz that he's known for. And I'm just happy to see the UFC's finally giving him kind of like a winnable matchup here with a striker. Until now, he's been paired up with these guys that are just wrestling him and bringing him to the ground and not letting Cody Garbrandt try to get into a flow state. We just want to see Cody Garbrandt get some kind of get back, So he's only 14-7 in his career. His record's not even that impressive to be in a elite bantamweight. So yeah, don't mind me just taking a little sip of that Sunday Joe, Sunday coffee. So yeah, Cody Garbrandt, featured prelim. Then you got RoboCop and Bruno Ferreira on here. Bruno Ferreira was originally supposed to fight Costa on here, but now Costa's fighting Azamat Murzakanov in Miami, so RoboCop. I think RoboCop won his last fight, right? He beat Kopylov. and knocked out Hermanson. And that's coming off the Cannonier loss. So RoboCop looking to string together a few wins, keep his ranking. Then Michael Johnson versus Drew Dober. They just added this on here to help kind of, I guess, fill out the 5 slot for this card. Dober, Johnson, this should be a fun, violent one. Michael Johnson also has strung together a few wins. Started when he had that crazy knockout in Tampa. That was a crazy card for finishes, and he had one of the finishes on that card. He also beat Michael Zellhuber. Michael Zellhuber has not been having a good year. He's been losing to these veteran gatekeeper black guys, bro. He's been losing to Michael Johnson, and he lost to King Green last night. Got finished by King Green. King Green turning back the clock last night too. So Michael Johnson and guys like him and King Green, they still got it. They're still bouncing out these young guys trying to up in the rankings in 2026, which is good to see, honestly. The longer these guys continue to win some fights here and there, the longer they'll stay in the sport because they'll think they still got it. And it's just always more entertaining when you have some of the names that, like, the UFC really was built on. Like, Michael Johnson is one of those dudes, bro. The Menace, crazy fight with Justin Gaethje back in the day. This is going to be a violent one. Could swing either way. You got Chihuihuis, Tasmanian Devil, Raul Rosas Jr. coming back versus Rob Font. I know a lot of people are going to favor Raul Rosas Jr. He has been looking like a threat on the ground. He's young, really young. He's like 22 years old or 21. He's younger than me. And I think he said he wants to retire by like 25. But who has he really faced? He has not faced any good opposition yet. He's been facing like the weakest of the weak in the division. The UFC's been slowly trying to build him up, right? He's got the brand. He actually lost to this guy in his second fight by decision, but then since then has been on a 4-fight win streak. KO'd a dude. Submission, and the last 2 fights were decisions. I mean, Raul Rosas Jr., he's got the personality, right? With Chihuihuis has been going viral. He's young. He's got this unique kind of persona, but like, Rob Font is really one of them bantamweight veterans. This dude has been here for a long time, and it could be interesting to see if he really could send back Raul Rosas Jr. We've seen it. We've literally just saw it with King Green sending back Michael Zellhuber. Could be another case of a veteran sending back a young up-and-comer like Raul Rosas Jr. We saw Loner Kavanaugh, who lost to Charles Johnson, come back and now just beat Brandon Moreno. I'm also trying to throw in a couple of relevant things from last night from UFC Mexico. So yeah, Rob Font versus Raul Rosas Jr. I'm going to go with Rob Font. I'm going to go with Rob Font to humble Raul Rosas Jr. a little bit. And he's been on a little bit of a layoff. I know Raul Rosas Jr. had a little bit of an injury. Then we go into Reiner DeRitter versus Kyle Borralho. Really not much to say on this. I would say the winner of this will face Anthony Hernandez. I think that's the next best fight to make. DeRitter was originally supposed to fight Hernandez in Vancouver and then ends up fighting Brendan Allen when he quit on the stool. So he never even got to fight Anthony Hernandez. And I thought Anthony Hernandez was going to beat DeRitter. But yeah, we know DeRitter's story. Came into the UFC not too long ago, beat Mearshart, Holland, Bo Nickel, and finished him badly. Then beat Robert Whittaker narrowly. I mean, Robert Whittaker almost finished him there. And then, of course, he had the fight versus Brendan Allen. And Brendan Allen made him quit on the stool, which was a big performance for Brendan Allen. And then Borralho also was stringing together a few wins. Fighting Nerds on the rise, 17-1. Took his first humbling loss in the UFC versus Nasruddin Imavov, who just, did enough to outstrike him. Nasruddin Imavov was a pretty slick striker. Good boxing. So Kyle Borralho ended up losing to him. I mean, it's not too bad of a loss considering what Imavov has also done to Cannonier and Brendan Allen. Like, Imavov has put together a really nice resume. Oh, and Israel Adesanya, of course. So both these guys need a bounce back fight. Obviously, one of them is going to end up being on a 2-fight losing streak after this, and one of them is going to have a nice bounce back to hang around in the upper rankings. And then definitely put them versus Fluffy. DeRitter's very long, lengthy, has a little bit of the reach advantage. Dangerous guy with some elbows, knees. Is able to finish on the ground, a grappler. And Borralho, he likes to stick it more on the feet with that kickboxing, Fighting Nerds type of style, slick. Cuts back, darts back and forth a little bit of a karate half karate, half like, I don't even know. But Borralho, yeah, this is interesting. Just it's very weak for a co-main event. Really weak, but who do I think is going to win? Hmm. I'm going to push for Borralho. I'm going to push for Borralho to win. I don't know. I'm feeling like the Fighting Nerds have found that magic again. Ruffy knocking out Fazeev. Gene Silva beating Arnold Allen, and now, Prates, who coming off two violent knockouts on Jeff Neal and Leon Edwards, now has a massive fight versus Jack Della Maddalena to literally get to be the number one contender. I feel like the Fighting Nerds all took a step back, and now they're all going to be back on it. So I'm going with Kyle Borralho. Wow, that is great coffee. Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway. The big one, right? This is the big matchup we've all been waiting for, a fight 10 years in the making. And I almost try to consider this like a fresh matchup, like we've never seen before, because what happened in the last fight, first of all, was 10 years ago. Both were super different, super young. Obviously, not as much stats on them either. And Charles Oliveira kind of had like a weird injury. He said the left side of his shoulder and neck was like paralyzed, and like thank God he was able to continue fighting after that. He thought it could be career threatening, but obviously not. Just think about the amount of experience that these dudes have accumulated since then. Max Holloway doing what he did, going through a Volk trilogy, and of course he lost all three fights, but then his classic fights versus Calvin Kattar, the Korean Zombie, Brian Ortega, Justin Gaethje, right? And Charles Oliveira being a lightweight champion, having the fight with Islam experience, then bounced back with fights versus Michael Chandler twice, Mateusz Gamrot, and who else? Beneil Dariush. Oliveira, like these dudes have really been here. And of course, Oliveira and Holloway, as I will continue to emphasize, Topuria's wins over both guys age better and better, because think about it. Topuria, first man to ever knock down, and pretty much finish Max Holloway, to take away that chin, that undefeated chin that Max Holloway had. Max Holloway does have a compromised chin in a way a little bit now. He's still one of the most elite chins in the games, but he did get beaten by Topuria. And Charles Oliveira, literally in the first striking exchange Topuria had to put hands on Oliveira, he clipped him. Oliveira on the ground, first man to do that. So I just say that Topuria's wins age better and better with the way that these two, because look at both of them. After those losses to Topuria getting slept, they both came back and had some of their most vintage performances in their career. Max Holloway going in there and having, the as advertised dogfight, BMF fight with Dustin Poirier and ultimately winning. Charles Oliveira had one of the best performances of his career, and that was like 3 months after getting slept by Topuria. People were saying, wow, for him to come in that quickly after getting slept for the first time in your career. But then he went in there and outclassed Gamrot and submitted him in a hero's return in Brazil. And of course, that ultimately led to Charles Oliveira calling out Max Holloway, and you knew they just need to make this fight. Because while we have this kind of like logjam at the top of the division, Gaethje now needs to fight Topuria since he has the belt. And then you have Arman, who's the uncrowned champion in a way, number one contender who still won't get his title shot. So they needed a fight in the meantime to continue to make things move. And what better way than to have Charles Oliveira fight Max Holloway for the BMF belt? And of course, we know the BMF belt, it's kind of gimmicky belt, but in all seriousness, this belt has delivered some of the best fights we've seen. Like every single time they've put this belt in front of two fighters, it's been a great fight. We of course had Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal, the originating fighters to where this belt was first pronounced. And Jorge Masvidal came away with that. You of course had the Poirier-Gaethje fight where Poirier got head kicked finished by Justin Gaethje. Then Justin Gaethje, of course, went into that fight at UFC 300, a catchweight fight with Holloway. And we got literally the craziest moment in UFC history when Holloway knocked him out in the final second of the fight, the final 10 seconds. That really, and that, by the way, that moment was really what kind of hit different for me and turned the switch on me to fall in love with this sport. Like I was already into it a little bit before then, but now that was a real moment that brought this sport into a whole new age in the last few years. So yeah, every time this belt has been on the line, It's been between obviously what the UFC considers are two of the baddest mother effers in the game. And it's supposed to be a classic fight of violence. And so far, the belt has not failed us on that. All these BMF title fights have been these great fights. And Charles Oliveira is saying he's ready to swing and bang, right? He's ready. These guys are ready to go and trade shots. Charles Oliveira is not backing down from that 10-second point down if Max Holloway wants to do it. We already know that Oliveira likes to walk his opponents down and get in their face and be a pressure style, but we saw that did not work well for him last time when he tried that versus Topuria. Topuria brought it back up to the feet. Oliveira's trying to get in his face and learned very quickly why that was a mistake, because then Topuria, what did he do? Boom. Oliveira caught the bomb, the Topuria power to his face, and was out cold. And as we look again at the resume of Charles Oliveira, of course, coming off that vintage performance versus Gamrot, one of the best performances of his career. Before that, of course, got slept by Topuria. Had his second fight with Chandler, which he beat. Good bounce back fight. See, Oliveira's always bounced back nicely after losses. He hasn't lost 2 in a row in a long time. Beat Gaethje, Poirier, Chandler. That was his legendary lightweight run. Ferguson, Gordon. Wow, he was on a... Yeah, dude, Oliveira was legendary. Then Islam, of course, first guy to really beat him in a while. Then he bounced back with the KO versus Dariush. Then lost Sarukian in a close fight. Almost finished Sarukian in the first round of that fight, as we know. Beat Chandler, lost to Topuria, then Gamrot. And then for Holloway, what can I say about Holloway? I mean, dude has had so many crazy moments, like knocking out Gaethje, the crazy moment where he beat the Korean Zombie 2 buzzer beater. Crazy violent fight versus Arnold Allen. The amount of damage he put on Calvin Kattar. And it was like, I'm the best boxer, while fading and dodging. Oh, I forgot he did beat Yair Rodriguez, right? Jose Aldo, of course, to become featherweight champion, I believe is what, right? Dustin Poirier. Wow, Holloway Ortega, bro. So many crazy fights for Holloway. Pure legends fight. And like I said, we got to enjoy these two while we still got them, because, yeah, I feel like these guys are going to only have like 2 years left in the game. And whoever loses, they're really going to have to look and see like what will make sense for the next step in their career. Because not only are they losing this kind of belt, but they're losing then a chance at climbing for the real belt, while the other guy will be propelled to a better fight for the belt. I imagine if Max Holloway wins, it's a real possibility he could fight either Arman or Benoit in the White House, because he's like American Hawaiian, depending on how this fight goes. I could see them doing that, or Arman's just going to fight Benoit. It's another fight that really makes sense. Yeah, so like Charles Oliveira, he's ready to stand and trade. Listen, it's an interesting fight because one guy is super dangerous on the ground, one of the best known for the ground, and one guy is one of the best known for the feet. So if Holloway could continue to get up on his feet and bring the fight to the feet, I have no doubt. I think he's going to outstrike Charles Oliveira for 5 rounds. I don't think there's any way that Charles Oliveira matches the skill of Holloway on the feet. But if Oliveira is able to keep Max Holloway to the ground, first of all, then it's going to be a stinker of a fight, because that's not what we all really want to see. Like, I get it. Like, we're going to appreciate Oliveira, but it's going to suck if you're seeing Max Holloway not being able to do anything and just being stuck on the ground in these weird positions. But if he keeps on the feet and Oliveira decides, you know what, I'm going to put on a real BMF fight, then yeah, we're in for a good one. We're in for a good one. The fight is advertised. And yeah, this is really the only fight on the entire card I'm interested in. I gotta be completely honest. Like I said, this is just a very weak numbered event. Partly probably because they're saving everything for the summer, that they want to put on the bigger fights, the bigger names, and obviously the White House, they're trying to save a lot of talent to have those options. But yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on UFC 326. Oliveira versus Holloway. And very, very quickly, I just want to also talk about, again, more fights announced for UFC 327. Prohaska versus Olberg, as we know, was just announced. Light heavyweight title fight. Pereira's moving up. Is either going to fight Gane or, yes, John Jones at the White House. They are saying now that he is a real possibility he's going to fight John Jones. And it makes sense. If they're really going to have these geological and political issues of having to pour in on the card with Justin Gaethje, you have no one else American that could headline that card, and you need an American. I really think it's about to happen, guys. We're really about to get the announcement. John Jones versus Pereira. But Ulrich Prohaska. You can't be mad at this card. It's a stacked card. Manuel Torres versus Benito Dariush was added on here. Probably just a very sacrificial fight for Torres to finish Dariush. Trying to push Torres. Gamrod versus Ribovics on the prelims. Ribovics is always a fun time. Always a fun time. Ribovics is finally on a numbered event. Finally, where he belongs. Like, this dude is fun. He just strikes and does. His output is insane. But why are they pairing him up with a grappler like Gamrod? Like, Gamrod's no joke on the ground. Hopefully this is a good fight. I really hope, like, Ribovics could keep it on the feet so he could do what he does best and put on an insane amount of output and damage. This card's loaded, though. Kevin Holland, Brown. I love how the UFC just said, you know what, we're going to put both Bellator signees that we got, and we're just going to put them up against each other, and one of them is going to have to win, and we'll build off them. Like, Pitbull, he got a good bounce-back win versus Dan Ige after, like, losing his first 2 UFC fights. We're like, oh, damn, Pitbull. Oh, no, he only has 2 fights. He lost to Yair Rodriguez on his debut in the last Miami card. And then Pico, of course, as we know, got finished by Lerone Murphy badly. Badly. So now UFC's like, yo, we're putting a Bellator main event in our prelims, which is pretty funny. But it's a cool fight, right? It's like 2 of some of the best fighters from a different promotion fighting each other. Another great fight added to the prelims with Pico and Pitbull. I honestly kind of want Pico to win. I kind of like, I don't know. And then Mirzakhanov Cost, as we know, Landwehr versus Cub. They ended up putting Vicente Luque versus Kelvin Gastelum. Instead, I guess Kyle Dawkins pulled out as soon as they really announced that fight. I think there's another fight. Am I missing another fight on here? I don't know. Let me check the Instagram real quick. But as I continue to look for this on Instagram, like, yo, this is a crazy card. Hokit, as we know, getting the huge step up in competition versus Curtis Blades. I honestly don't mind it. No, I think, they have all the fights here. This is the entire card. Pretty sick card for Miami. So yeah, guys, that's it. Oliveira versus Holloway. What more do we need to say? This fight is going to be fireworks. Fireworks. And I have a feeling we're going to see a crazy vintage style moment for one of these 2 men. It's going to be tough to stomach whoever loses. These are 2 of the most universally beloved fighters in the game. But that's why they make these kind of fights, because it's legend versus legend. And it's all respect at the end of the day. I'll see you guys at the end to react to all of it.